All right, let's dive into an explainer that it's absolutely going to make you feel incredibly grateful for whatever job you have. We're about to explore the worst occupations of the Victorian era. And trust me, they're so much worse than you can possibly imagine. So, you ever have one of those days? You're at your desk, you've had a rough go, and you think to yourself, this is it. This is the worst job in the entire world. Well, I promise you, after the next few minutes, you're going to see your 9 to 5 in a completely new light. We're going to hop in our time machine and head back to the 19th century, the Victorian era. Now, this was a time of steam engines, towering factories, incredible progress, right? But underneath that shiny surface of innovation was a much, much darker and grittier reality for the average person. When we think of the Victorians, this is kind of the image that pops into our heads, fancy top hats, amazing architecture, all this progress. But for the vast majority of people, the reality was this: overcrowded, filthy cities, absolutely no labor laws to protect them, and a kind of poverty that forced people into the most desperate and, frankly, lethal jobs imaginable, just to survive another day. So, to give you a sense of where this is all going, this is going to be our roadmap. We're going to start with the jobs that were merely traumatic and disgusting, and then we're going to work our way up to the occupations that were, and I mean this quite literally, a death sentence. So, let's kick things off at level 1, survival. These are the jobs people took just to get by, jobs that meant plunging themselves headfirst into the absolute filth of the city. First up, we have the pure finder. Now, that name sounds almost pleasant, doesn't it? But pure was actually the Victorian street slang for dog poop. Yep, and believe it or not, there was a huge market for it. Just try to picture this as your daily routine. You're walking the streets of London, bucket in hand, scanning the ground and scooping up dog waste, often with your bare hands. Why would anyone do this? Well, leather tanneries would pay good money for this pure because the enzymes in it were perfect for softening leather that was then used for luxury goods like gloves and book bindings. It was a foul, degrading way to make a living, but for a lot of people, it was the only thing standing between them and starving to death. And if you thought collecting dog waste was bad, well, let me introduce you to the Bone Grubber. Their job was to wade through literal mountains of toxic city garbage and even raw sewage, searching for discarded animal bones. This disgusting, back-breaking work was actually, well, essential. The bones they found were cleaned up and processed into all sorts of everyday items. The very buttons on a fancy gentleman's coat or the handle of your toothbrush might have started its life in a sewer. It's just a shocking connection between the city's worst filth and its finest goods. Okay, we are leveling up the danger now. We're moving from occupations that were just plain filthy to a job that required you to actively harm yourself on a daily basis. Meet the Leech Collector. You see, in the Victorian era, the old medieval practice of bloodletting was still incredibly popular for treating pretty much any illness. This created a massive demand for medicinal leeches, and, well, someone had to go out and get them. And the process was basically a form of self-mutilation. The collectors, who were often older women, would wade into these freezing, muddy swamps and just stand there. They used their own legs as bait. They had to endure the feeling of dozens of leeches latching on and feeding on them, and only when the leeches were swollen with the collector's own blood could they be peeled off and sold. The health consequences were, as you can imagine, horrific. And this wasn't a one-time thing. This was their daily job. The constant, massive blood loss and the super high risk of infection from that disgusting water meant that being a leech collector was a profession with a terribly, terribly short life expectancy. And now we've reached it, the final boss. This next job wasn't just dangerous or disgusting, it was an almost guaranteed, slow, and agonizing death sentence. The deadliest job of them all sounds surprisingly harmless: the Matchgirl. Matches were a huge new technology, a massive industry, and factories employed thousands of young women and girls to make them. But the key ingredient they all worked with was a deadly poison. You see, the girl's job was to dip matchsticks into a chemical called white phosphorus, and inhaling the fumes from this stuff caused a horrific disease called phossy jaw. It was a form of bone rot where the phosphorus would get into their system and literally start to destroy their jaw from the inside out. 14. That's how many hours a day these girls, some of them just children, would spend inside those factories, breathing in these toxic fumes 6 days a week. The way the disease progressed is pure nightmare fuel. It started with what felt like a bad toothache. Then came the most horrifying symptom of all. The victim's jawbone would literally begin to glow a faint greenish-white color in the dark. From there, the bone would just rot away, leading to terrible disfigurement, brain abscesses, and a slow, painful death. And there was no cure. So, after that horrifying journey into the past, let's bring it back to today. How's your job looking in comparison? Seriously, the next time you're stuck in a traffic jam, or you're staring at an inbox with 100 unread emails, just take a second. At least you're not collecting leeches with your legs, or risking a jaw that glows in the dark. It really does put things into perspective, doesn't it? So I'll leave you with this question. After everything we've just seen, which one of these Victorian jobs do you think was the absolute, hands-down worst?